41 million people visited Florida in just 3 months this year. Record-breaking numbers. So why does this beach look completely dead? Picture it. Middle of July, perfect sun, that famous turquoise water, and the boardwalk? Empty. The bar that's usually packed by noon? Silent. One beach manager said it straight. It's the slowest year we've had since 2020. Another owner said spring break never happened, and the summer rush everyone counts on? It never showed up. Here's what makes zero sense. Florida is booming on paper, while its most famous seaside towns are turning into ghost towns right in front of us. So what's really going on? Is quietly draining these towns dry in 2026? Stick with me, because I'm counting down 10 Florida beach towns people are abandoning, and the shocking reason behind it. Number 3 will genuinely stop you cold. Number 10, Clearwater Beach. Let's kick things off with a name you know, Clearwater Beach. Year after year, it gets crowned one of the best beaches in the entire country. 3 miles of powder-soft sand, water so clear it looks photoshopped, and a reputation that used to guarantee packed sidewalks from sunrise to sunset. So how did a beach this famous end up on a list about townspeople are abandoning? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Clearwater is the perfect example of our whole paradox. The statewide numbers stay strong, but the mix of who's actually showing up has quietly changed. For years, a huge slice of Clearwater's crowd came from overseas. Canadians, Brits, Germans, all chasing that winter sun. That international wave, it's thinning out fast. And when those visitors vanish, they take their hotel nights, their restaurant tabs, and their souvenir dollars with them. Then there's the fatigue factor nobody talks about. Clearwater got so popular that it became the default. Everybody's been, everybody's seen the photos. And when a destination becomes the thing everyone's already done, curiosity dries up. Travelers start hunting for somewhere fresher, quieter, and, let's be honest, cheaper. Because that's the other quiet killer here. Cost, parking that stings, resort prices that climb every single season. When a family sits down and does the math, Clearwater increasingly loses to less crowded, less expensive spots just down the coast. So Clearwater didn't get worse. Let that sink in. The beach is still gorgeous. The sand is still world-class. What changed is the competition. Other towns got easier, calmer, and better value, and travelers noticed. Traveler takeaway? This is actually great news for you. If you've always wanted the classic Clearwater experience without shoulder-to-shoulder crowds, target the shoulder seasons. Late spring or early fall, you'll get the same postcard beach with a fraction of the chaos, and hotels hungry for bookings will hand you deals they'd never offer in peak July. Sometimes an emptier town is a secret gift. Number 9, Naples. Next up, Naples. Say the name and people picture the same thing. Money. Manicured golf courses, luxury boutiques, waterfront mansions, and one of the most polished downtowns in the entire state. Naples has always sold itself as Florida perfected. So here's the question that makes this one so strange. How does one of the wealthiest beach towns in America end up feeling empty? The answer is almost the opposite of everywhere else on this list. Naples isn't struggling because it got cheap or run down. It's struggling for tourism because it got too expensive to breathe. The total cost of ownership here, insurance premiums climbing, property taxes stacking up, utilities upkeep, has quietly reshaped who this town is even for. Watch what that does. As costs rise, Naples tilts harder and harder toward a seasonal, ultra-wealthy crowd. People who fly in for a few weeks and vanish. The everyday traveler, the middle-class family that used to splurge on a Naples getaway, gets priced right out of the picture. And when the everyday visitor disappears, so does the energy. The restaurants that depend on steady foot traffic. The shops that need volume, not just billionaires. The result is genuinely eerie. Naples can look absolutely flawless. Spotless streets, gorgeous storefronts, and still feel hollow in the shoulder seasons. It becomes a town that's beautiful to look at, but quiet to actually be in. Exclusive to the point of feeling like a movie set after the crew went home. And that exclusivity is a double-edged sword. The wealthier and more locked down Naples becomes, the fewer reasons a regular traveler has to choose it over somewhere warmer, friendlier, and less intimidating on the wallet. Traveler takeaway? Naples is still worth seeing. The beaches and sunsets are genuinely spectacular. But go in with a plan. Visit for the day, enjoy the pier and downtown, then sleep somewhere more reasonable nearby. You'll get all the Naples beauty without the Naples price shock. Sometimes the smartest move is to visit the dream, not fund it. Number 8, Fort Myers Beach. Now we head to a town that's fighting harder than almost any other on this list, Fort Myers Beach. Once the laid-back sandy heart of Southwest Florida, this is a place that's been through the ringer, rebuilding and redefining itself piece by piece. And that's exactly what makes it so telling. Because Fort Myers Beach doesn't just have one of our three forces working against it, it's carrying all three at once. Start with insurance. This stretch of coast sits in one of the toughest, most brutal zones in the entire state to insure. We're talking premiums that can turn a profitable little business into a losing one overnight. When it costs this much just to keep the doors open, owners hesitate, rebuild slower, or simply don't come back at all. And every shuttered storefront makes the whole beach feel a little more hollow. Then layer on the vanishing snowbird. Fort Myers Beach leaned heavily on those loyal seasonal visitors, the Canadians and Northerners who'd settle in for weeks at a time. With that crowd pulling back hard, the reliable winter income that used to carry local businesses through the slow months has thinned out dramatically. And finally, the psychological weight of storm risk. Even when the sun is shining and the water's perfect, that lingering "what if" sits in the back of travelers' minds. Perception alone can quietly steer visitors toward towns that feel safer. Fair or not. Here's the nuance most people miss, though. It's not really that nobody wants to visit Fort Myers Beach. The spirit is still there. The locals are resilient. What's actually happening is that the cost and hassle of running a business here have thinned out what visitors find when they arrive. Fewer open shops, fewer bars, fewer reasons to linger. Traveler takeaway? Fort Myers Beach genuinely needs and rewards the travelers who show up. Spend your money with local businesses, book directly, and you'll help rebuild the very charm you came for. Number 7, Seaside. If you've ever scrolled through Florida on Instagram, you've seen this next one, whether you knew its name or not. Seaside in the dreamy 30A corridor, pastel cottages lined up like a movie set, because it literally was one. Sugar white sand, bikes with wicker baskets, that impossibly perfect small-town fantasy. This is Florida's postcard. So how does the prettiest stretch of the entire coast make a list about towns people are walking away from? Here's the number that stops people cold. Walton County, the beating heart of 30A, reported a tourism tax drop of over 10% in a recent year-over-year comparison. And that wasn't a one-off blip. It came during a stretch of multi-year declines that stood out, especially because the rest of Florida was growing at the same time. When the state booms and your golden corridor shrinks, something real is happening. And the reason is almost poetic. It's the love-to-death curse in its purest form. 30A got so premium, so exclusive, and so crowded that it slowly strangled the very magic that made it famous. The charm that drew people in, the calm, the space, the ease, got buried under traffic jams, packed beaches, and price tags that climbed into fantasy territory. Think about the irony. People came to 30A to escape the crowds and the cost. Now it is the crowds and the cost. Locals and repeat visitors are doing the quiet math and choosing quieter, more affordable stretches of coast instead. The beauty is completely intact. The value is what quietly vanished. That's the cruel twist of this whole corridor. Nothing about the scenery got worse. If anything, it's more polished than ever. But polished and priced out is a dangerous combination, and 30A is living proof. Traveler takeaway? You can still capture that seaside dream. Just go off-peak and stay in the lesser-known towns along 30A rather than the famous flashpoints. Same sugar sand, same pastel charm, a fraction of the crowd and the cost. Number 6, Destin. Say hello to the superstar of the Emerald Coast, Destin. For decades this was the name. Sugar white sand, that jaw-dropping emerald green water, world-class fishing, and a reputation so strong that families booked the same week year after year. generation after generation. Destin wasn't just a vacation. For a lot of people, it was a tradition. So brace yourself because this next fact genuinely doesn't add up at first. In the very same window that Florida announced record statewide tourism, the Emerald Coast region, Destin's home turf, posted declines. Let that collision sink in. The state is throwing a party, breaking visitor records, while one of its most beloved crown jewels is quietly slipping backward. When the tide is rising everywhere except your beach, that's not bad luck. That's a signal. So what's really behind it? This one isn't about insurance or vanishing snowbirds. It's the love-to-death effect hitting full force. Destin became a victim of its own fame. The crowds swelled, the traffic became legendary, and not in a good way. And the thing that quietly broke people's hearts, shrinking, harder to reach beach access. When you drive hours for paradise and spend the first two fighting bumper-to-bumper traffic just to find nowhere to park, the magic starts to crack. And here's the mindset shift that's killing Destin's grip. Loyal visitors are now saying it out loud. Why fight the crowds here when somewhere else is easier, calmer, and cheaper? Once that question enters someone's head, the spell is broken. Tradition only holds until frustration outweighs nostalgia, and for a lot of families, that tipping point has finally arrived. The tragedy is that Destin's natural beauty never faded. That emerald water is still stunning. What faded is the ease, the effortless joy that made it a tradition in the first place. Traveler takeaway? Destin is still worth it if you play it smart. Book early, target the shoulder seasons, and research beach access before you go. Do that, and you can still find the Destin people fell in love with. Number 5, St. Pete Beach. Next on our countdown, St. Pete Beach. This one hurts a little because it's repeatedly ranked among the best beaches, not just in Florida, but in all of America. Soft sand, warm Gulf water, that easygoing barefoot vibe. It's the kind of place that shows up on bucket list beaches lists every single year. And yet, the locals themselves are the ones sounding the alarm. When the residents start openly wondering if their own town is changing, you pay attention. Here's what makes St. Pete Beach so unsettling. It's getting hit by two of our forces at the exact same time, and one of them is completely out of anyone's control. First, the foreign visitor drop. Like so much of the Gulf Coast, St. Pete Beach leaned on international travelers. And with that crowd pulling back, the buzz has noticeably dimmed. But the second force is the one that truly rattles people, red tide. For those who don't know, red tide is a toxic algae bloom that can roll in off the Gulf and change everything in a matter of hours. It can leave dead fish along the shoreline and cause coughing, stinging eyes, and scratchy throats for anyone nearby. Imagine planning your dream beach week, arriving, and being greeted by that. Locals are genuinely asking online how much these blooms are reshaping daily life and the local economy. And that anxiety spreads. That's the real killer here. It's not that the beach got worse. It's that the certainty disappeared. People used to book St. Pete Beach knowing they'd get a flawless week. Now there's a question mark hanging over it. The foreign crowds thinning on one side, the unpredictable algae on the other. And uncertainty is poison for tourism. The beach itself, still absolutely stunning, still deserving of every award. Traveler takeaway? Before you book, check red tide forecasts. Florida agencies publish real-time updates. A quick search can save your whole trip, and you'll often still find a gorgeous, wide-open beach waiting. Number 4, Madeira Beach. Welcome to Ground Zero. If you want to see this entire phenomenon with your own eyes, you come to Madeira Beach, or as the locals call it, Mad Beach. This laid-back little Gulf Coast gem is exactly where those chilling ghost town quotes came from. This is the town where a general manager looked around and said, "It's the slowest year we've had since 2020," where an owner admitted spring break never happened. Mad Beach isn't a symptom of the story. Mad Beach is the story, and the numbers back up the heartbreak. Water sports operators here reported business down as much as 30% for some of their peers. 30%. Think about what that actually means for a small family-run beach business. That's the difference between a good year and locking the doors for good. That's the difference between hiring your usual summer crew and letting people go. So why did Mad Beach get hit harder than almost anywhere else? Because it lived and breathed on the exact crowd that vanished. Canadian and international visitors. This was their spot. The snowbirds, the overseas travelers chasing that easygoing Gulf sunset. They were the lifeblood pumping through Mad Beach's veins. So when Canadian road trips into the U.S. cratered and international travel pulled back sharply, this town didn't just feel a ripple, it felt a tidal wave. That's the brutal lesson of Madeira Beach. When your entire economy is built on one loyal group of visitors and that group suddenly stops coming, there's no cushion. No backup crowd waiting in the wings. The domestic travelers who are still visiting Florida simply aren't filling those specific empty chairs. The beach stays gorgeous. The businesses stay open. For now. But the energy drains out. Traveler takeaway? This is genuinely one of the best value beach towns in Florida right now. Fewer crowds, hungry local businesses, and that authentic old Florida feel. If you show up and spend local, you're not just getting a deal, you're helping keep Mad Beach alive. Number 3, Sanibel Island. And here it is. Number 3. The one I promised would stop you cold. Sanibel Island. For decades, this was the untouchable crown jewel of the Gulf Coast. No high-rises allowed, no flashing neon, just old Florida soul, quiet bike paths, and some of the best shelling on the entire planet. People flew in from around the world just to hunt for seashells at dawn. Sanibel wasn't loud or trendy, it was sacred. So how does the most beloved, most protected island on this list end up here? Here's the gut punch. That very thing that makes Sanibel magical, it being a slender barrier island, is also its greatest weakness. Barrier islands sit out front, facing the open Gulf, absorbing storm risk directly. And that geography has made Sanibel one of the hardest and most expensive places in the entire state to insure. High exposure policies here rank among the steepest anywhere in Florida. When it costs a fortune just to protect a property, everything downstream gets harder. Rentals, businesses, rebuilding, the whole ecosystem. But the deeper story, the one that truly matters, is fragility. A barrier island doesn't hide behind anything. It takes the hit. And both insurers and travelers have started quietly pricing that reality in. It's not that the shells stopped washing up or the sunsets got any less golden. It's that the confidence cracked. The unshakable faith that Sanibel would always be there, always be easy, always be safe. That certainty is what's eroding, grain by grain. And that's what makes Sanibel the most haunting name on this list. The charm is still there. You can still find it. But the sense of permanence, the feeling that this paradise was untouchable, has been shaken to its core. When even the crown jewel feels fragile, it tells you everything about where Florida's coast is heading. Traveler takeaway? Sanibel rewards those who make the effort. Go, slow down, hunt for shells at sunrise, and support the businesses fighting to preserve the magic. Number 2, Marco Island. We're nearing the top, and this next one is subtle but sneaky. Marco Island. The largest of Florida's 10,000 islands, Marco has long been the polished, upscale escape at the bottom of the Gulf Coast. Wide crescent beaches, luxury condos, calm turquoise water, and that gated, exclusive feel that made people dream of buying a slice of it someday. But here's the shift that's quietly hollowing it out. Marco Island is becoming a place people visit, but no longer stay. The 1-2 punch here is insurance plus property taxes. Both have climbed to the point where would-be buyers and long-term renters are getting genuinely spooked. Picture falling in love with Marco, running the numbers on actually living there, and watching those annual carrying costs, the insurance premiums, the tax bill, pile up until the dream quietly dies on the spreadsheet. That's happening to person after person, and it changes the entire character of the island. Because when the everyday resident and the long-term renter get priced out, what's left behind is a part-time, high-net-worth enclave, a community that empties out for big chunks of the year. And that shift has consequences most travelers never think about. Fewer working locals means fewer people staffing the restaurants and shops. Fewer year-round residents means fewer businesses can justify staying open through the slow seasons. The island gets quieter, not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the empty kind. That's the trap Marco Island is sliding into. It's transforming from a living, breathing community into a beautiful holding pattern, gorgeous, pristine, and increasingly lifeless in the off months. And a town without year-round life is a town that slowly loses the very warmth that made it feel like home to visitors in the first place. Traveler takeaway? Marco is still stunning, especially in peak season when it comes alive. But if you crave that buzzing, lived-in beach town energy, time your trip carefully. In off-season, Marco can feel more like a ghost of paradise than paradise itself. Number 1. Cape Coral, and here we are. Number 1. The town that captures this entire story in a single word. Cape Coral. For years, this was the Florida dream made affordable. Over 400 miles of canals, more than any city on Earth. Waterfront homes with boats parked out back, sunshine, space, and a price tag that actually made the fantasy feel reachable for regular people. Cape Coral wasn't for the ultra-rich. It was for the family that saved up and finally grabbed their piece of paradise. So why does it top a list about towns people are walking away from? Because in 2026, that dream comes with a receipt, and it's a brutal one. Average home insurance here now runs into the thousands every single year. And for those coveted high-value waterfront homes, policies can climb past $20,000 annually. Read that again. $20,000 just for insurance, before you've paid a cent of mortgage, taxes, or upkeep. The number that made Cape Coral famous, its affordability, is the exact number that's now driving people away. And here's the thing. The real killer here isn't the beach or crowds or algae. It's the math. Cold, simple math. When your carrying costs double, affordable paradise quietly stops being affordable. The whole promise of Cape Coral, the reason people fell in love with it, collapses under a spreadsheet. Buyers hesitate. Owners reconsider. Renters look elsewhere. And the dream that felt so within reach slips right through people's fingers. That's what makes Cape Coral the perfect number 1. It didn't lose its canals or its sunshine. It lost its accessibility. And when the town built entirely on being attainable becomes unattainable, the exodus writes itself. Traveler takeaway? Here's the silver lining. As owners scramble to fill calendars, off-season rental deals are quietly appearing all over Cape Coral. If you've ever wanted that waterfront canal experience, this may be the best window in years to grab it for less. So after all that, here's the part almost nobody will tell you straight. Florida is not dying. It's not emptying out. In fact, the state is still one of the top places people are moving to in the entire country. What you're actually watching isn't a collapse. It's a massive, quiet reshuffle of who visits, of who stays, of who finally decides to move on. Some longtime residents are cashing out and pulling the halfback move. Retirees who came all the way down to Florida, then bounced halfway back toward the Carolinas, Tennessee, or Georgia. Same warm vibe, same slower pace, a whole lot less pressure on the wallet. And travelers? They're quietly rerouting to spots with fewer crowds and better value. So what do you do with all this? If you're a traveler, congratulations, because this is genuinely the best deal hunting window for a Florida beach trip in years. Thinner crowds, off-season steals, and owners hungry to fill empty calendars. Go in the shoulder seasons, book directly, and you can experience these towns closer to how they used to feel. If you're thinking about buying or moving, do not fall for the sticker price. Look at the total cost of ownership: insurance, taxes, utilities, and storm risk combined. That single honest number is the real story behind every town on this list. And if you genuinely love these towns, then show up. Visit the smaller, quieter ones. Spend your money with local businesses, because these places aren't dead. They're waiting to be rediscovered by the right people. Maybe that's you. One last note. Everything here is for information and general insight only. Trends and costs change fast and vary by situation, so always check with a qualified local professional before making any travel, buying, or moving decision.